Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I am recording this on April 4th. We're going to go over mostly the news about the downing of the F-15. There was also a hit on an A-10 and two Black Hawks yesterday. They're still trying to find one of the crew members of the F-15. They found the pilot, but the weapons specialist is still in rescue mode. We don't know if he's alive or dead or captured or whatever. Um, that's probably the biggest part of the news. Now, what is interesting is the Pentagon seems to be relatively quiet about this. The White House is very quiet about it. A lot of the mainstream media is very negative about Trump. So we're going to do a survey of the landscape of the news on that particular subject. Maybe there'll be something breaking, you never know. But please help support the work that I do. All these videos are for free. Make sure you subscribe. Ask your social media to follow me. Share the links. Those are great ways. Another great way to support the work and to cover the content that I create is to be a member on my Patreon channel. You can also be a member to my Substack channel, or you can donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee. Follow me on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. You can also follow me on Apple Podcasts, Podomatic, and TikTok, X, and GETTR. So there's lots of ways to consume the content that I create. All of it's for free. All right, I have thousands of videos out there for free. So please help support the work that I do. And I have great products on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I have ebooks about finance, about artificial intelligence, genomics, endocrinology. So there's many different subjects. There's around 8 different books that I've written over the years. I also have course material on immunology and pulmonology that you can learn from. You get a lot of content. And I have great supplements that I use every day to slow down the aging process. They work. It's a protocol that I've developed over the years. If you follow my advice, you will slow down the aging process and get healthy. Some of the products that I have that you should get are the structural nanosilver soaps. You can get it in peppermint and also in lemongrass. That's what I have in stock right now. Get a couple bars for your household. This will help with the health of your skin and your pores and neutralize because they have structural nanosilver. It's a lot better than some of the other soaps that you may be using. I also have structural nanosilver toothpaste. It has no fluoride. It'll whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, reduce inflammation at the gum line, help the gum line health, and this will neutralize because it's the structural nanosilver. And with good oral hygiene, you'll also improve your cardiovascular health and your valvular health. Why? Poor oral hygiene can lead to problems with your cardiovascular health. So you want a very powerful toothpaste. This is the best you can get. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nanosilver toothpaste. It neutralizes. So you should be using this every day, but especially during the cold season. And vitamin C and magnesium boosts up your immune system, helps with your skin. This stacks really well with the collagen. You drink filtered water, take the vitamin C and take the collagen. The vitamin C and the collagen will cross-link and improve your dermal layer. Vitamin C and magnesium also helps to boost up your immune system and helps with your brain function. Magnesium is super important for brain function. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, get $5 off any order. And if you take my advice throughout this video, you will slow down the aging process. All right, with that, let's go to Fox News.
Tower is the urgent search for a missing F-15E crew member.
A U.S. fighter jet is down behind enemy lines in Iran.
It is the first American warplane shot down by Iran since Operation Epic Fury began just 5 weeks ago.
The chief correspondent, Jonathan Hunt, joining us live from Tel Aviv with the very latest. Jonathan.
Good morning to you guys. There is quite literally a race on to find that missing F-15E crew member. The U.S. doing everything it can, of course, to bring him home safely, but the Iranian military also looking for him, looking for what would be obviously a huge propaganda victory. If they can find that crew member, they would obviously parade him on Iranian state TV. Talking of Iranian state TV, they were very quick to start showing.
We don't know if he's captured. If he was captured, he probably would have probably would have seen posts of it from the RGC. I think he's dead, but who knows, all right? But if he is captured alive, this is reminiscent of the Iran hostage crisis. And remember what I said, we're living in another cycle of history that's rhyming. And we're at a fork in the road. Are we going to be like Carter, President Carter, and fail? Or are we going to succeed, pick the path of success?
Pictures of the wreckage of that F-15E and one of the ejector seats with remnants of a parachute found near where it came down. That was in the southwest of Iran, a pretty remote area. We have seen pictures of rescue helicopters flying in that area. At one point, we know that some of those helicopters, the U.S. helicopters, took incoming fire. Some members of one of those crews were injured, but we understand the helicopters landed safely. Separately, and around the same time, a U.S. A-10 Warthog was also brought down. That crashed apparently near the Strait of Hormuz. The pilot of that A-10 Warthog has been successfully recovered. Meantime, strikes against Iran continue. We heard of strikes near the Bushehr nuclear facility in Iran earlier today. That is obviously one of Iran's major nuclear programs. We don't know the precise target of those. We are hearing from Iranian state TV that one security guard was killed. And Iran continues to hit back. Just a short time ago, here we got the alerts that there was an incoming missile from Iran headed towards central Tel Aviv. That had turned out to be one of those cluster munitions, and there was at least one impact in the Tel Aviv area. We understand there are some injuries. We're working to get more detail on that. Back to you guys.
All right, Jonathan Hunt, live for us in Tel Aviv. Jonathan, thank you very much. We'll check in back with you a little bit later. Now, let's bring our viewers into what Jonathan's talking about and where the F-15E went down. It is believed to have gone down in the Khuzestan province. You see here in the red. And the F-15E, by the way, is the Air Force's workhorse. They can do air-to-air and air-to-ground missions. They can fly low. They can fight in multiple conditions. And this is the area they think it went down. But you can see in the screen, the Zagros mountain range. That's the difficulty that Jonathan was talking about. And you can see here a picture of that Zagros mountainous area. Very difficult terrain. Now, what's happening is our combat search and rescue teams, or CSAR, highly trained teams that are equipped to go in. Remember, all the way back in 1995, you had a daring rescue of Scott O'Grady. A pilot went down. So more than 30 years, these specialty teams have pararescue jumpers that can go into difficult terrain like this. They're equipped with medical equipment, and they can navigate the terrain. Meanwhile, all pilots in this F-15E crew would have had SEER training, survival, evasion, resistance, escape. That is equipping them to take cover, to hide for possibly long periods of time. And just a wider look at the area, you can see that in that Zagros belt, it is very oil rich. The green area is the Arabian-Iranian basin. And of course, the Zagros plays a large part. You can see in the red supergiant oil fields, they have that, and of course, all that oil wanting to come out of that Strait of Hormuz. The Strait, by the way, is where that A-10 Warthog was believed to have gone down. That pilot, okay, but guys, the clock is ticking. It's been more than 24 hours now. That weapons systems officer, that's the guy that rides in the back, that is believed to be somewhere in that area, and teams are working to get him. But these CSAR teams, these search and rescue teams, are the best of the best. And so there's hope that they will be able to recover him. He obviously has beacons and technology that would direct our CSAR teams to him. We just need to get him.
But we also don't know if he's alive or dead, correct?
We don't know that, Rachel, and that's why this is so heavy, because we do know from reporting that the PAVE helicopters that went in to rescue the first pilot did take fire. They're okay, but during the rescue of that first pilot, they did take fire on the helicopters, which means that there are possibly IRGC threats in the area, which raises the stakes for the rescue of the second pilot.
And initially, Iran said shoot and kill any pilot that is found in a crash site. And now they're saying no, capture them.
And bring them to the cops. Yeah, I'm just curious, is it, as we go deeper in terms of the time, is that encouraging or discouraging, do you imagine, the fact that we still don't have definitive evidence of the passing or of life?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have to imagine, listen, I've been thinking about this since it happened because it's just tragic. Imagine being the spouse, the family member of this pilot. You wonder, do you prefer that your loved one be dead than captured by these people? So this is something to really think about. I'm just curious what shot it down, because PDX had said we had air superiority over there. Was this shot down by, from the ground, from somebody,
So I think that's a really important point, Rachel, and we'll ask our military experts later throughout the show, were we not as air superior as we were told we thought we were, because something shot the plane down. But to your point, Kevin, every second counts in a moment like this. The longer that weapons systems officer is trying to survive and not be captured, the stakes get higher and higher. But it's also worth noting that these pilots and this SEER training, this survival and evasion training is very, very specific, and they are trained even in the mountainous region to survive long periods of time because of the time it may take the rescue crews to get to them.
How does this affect the war itself from the political perspective here domestically?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think ultimately what usually would happen in a circumstance like this is people are mature. The American public has, listen, let's be honest, we've been at war or some form of fashion for most of my adult life, if not all of it. And so I think most Americans understand that there are risks. However, I think politically, you're right, Rachel, it can be complicated because as this goes along, in particular, if there are more incidents like this, it gives certainly Democrats a cudgel with which to attack the administration. That said, I think because the president and the Secretary of War have been consistent in saying there is a very specific.
What worries me in terms of the rhyming of history, yes, there is a rhyming of history with the Iran hostage crisis, potentially if he's captured alive. But there's also a rhyming of the Vietnam era. Now, I'm not an expert at the Vietnam era, but the little that I do know is that there was a helicopter operation that was taking place early in the war, that where the helicopter was taken down and there was a lot of casualties that took place in this field. I don't know the name of the actual battle, but it was at the very beginning of the war. And that starts setting in motion. And the helicopters that were being used were not the Huey helicopters. So it's before the Huey helicopters. This was more like the helicopters that would have been used during, let's say, the Korean War, whatever type that was. But the point here that I'm making is that there was this realization that the ground offensive was going to be a lot harder than anticipated in Vietnam. I have this sense that there's a rhyme here. There's a similarity that's starting to take hold. Another similarity that I'm picking up is that Iran's terrain is very mountainous, especially on the west, all along the west and a big part of the southern area of the country. Well, that means caves. That means mountainous terrain. It's not really conducive for mechanized warfare. And it's a lot harder to just bomb them to oblivion in the mountains. So what this means here is very similar to Afghanistan, because Afghanistan was a mountainous war. And I think this is part of the reason why we didn't do so well in Afghanistan. I don't think our army is good enough in mountaineering. So with that, there's an element of like Afghanistan 2.0 in this. So it's a mixture of Vietnam and Afghanistan starting to emerge from what I'm picking up here, just intuitively.
Motivation here, there's a very specific mission here. Yes, this is war. Yes, there will be things that happen. That's part of it. As I heard Paul Morrow say yesterday, listen, the enemy gets a say in this too. So I do think that there will be some political risk here, especially as things like this do happen. But I think ultimately, as long as the president stands by his word, which is there's a specific timeline, there's a specific mission here. If he does that, the American people, I think, will give him that leeway.
Want even more Fox News on YouTube? Become a Fox News Patriot today. Click join to find out how.
We're going to go to live now about airstrikes hit near Iranian nuclear facility after U.S. warplane shot down. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Boomer Boost. This has 68 nutrients. It's a very comprehensive compound pork profile. I take this every day. This is a month supply. You mix it with soft foods like hummus or yogurt or applesauce. You can also mix it in a smoothie or just with milk or just with filtered water, but take it every day. This will help many different systems in your body. So you get the most bang for your buck by taking this every day. This will help with brain function, allow you to sleep better. It'll improve your memory. You'll be able to concentrate better. It'll also help with musculature, especially if you're doing resistance training. It will help with your immune system and your endocrine system, boost them up. It'll help with your cardiovascular health. It'll rev up your energy levels and increase your cellular metabolism. So you're going to get leaner and you're going to have lots of energy, and it's going to be a steady burn of energy, no spiking. So if you want to improve your health, please go to my store and start with the Boomer Boost. Very high quality, and it works. And if you are someone that gets headaches regularly, you will also notice that your headaches will diminish. The prevalence of the headaches and the severity of the headache will go down. So the prevalence will go down, the severity of the headache will go down. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost.
There's been a missile strike in central Israel. This is a live look there out of Tel Aviv this morning. Now, Fox's Trey Yingst has been sharing to social media. He says cluster munition, many smaller explosions across the center of Tel Aviv. And he also says this, more ballistic missile launches detected, sirens expected soon in central Israel, as once again, you are taking that live look there out of Tel Aviv. Now, I do want to transition to some other news here out of the Middle East. We brought this to you just a short time ago. New this morning, an Iranian nuclear facility has been struck for the fourth time. So the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran said in a social media post today that apart from killing a guard, the airstrike also damaged a support building. The International Atomic Energy Agency posted on social media that, quote, no increase and radiation levels was reported following the strike. The nuclear power plant uses low-enriched uranium from Russia, along with Russian technicians, to supply about 1,000 megawatts of power for Iran. Its pressurized water reactor can power hundreds of thousands of homes and other businesses and industries, but it contributes only 1 to 2% of Iran's total power needs. Iran has been trying to expand the facility to multiple reactors. In 2019, it began a project that ultimately plans to add 2 additional reactors to the site, each adding another 1,000 megawatts apiece. We also heard from the Iranian foreign minister this morning on social media that radioactive fallout from further attacks on the nuclear power plant would have disastrous repercussions in regional capitals, not Tehran. He accused Western governments of remaining silent regarding repeated attacks on the plant located some 465 miles south of Iran's capital. So we wanted to share that news here with you. We also continue to follow this story that we first brought to you just yesterday after we learned that Iran shot down 2 U.S. military planes in separate attacks yesterday, with 1 service member rescued and at least 1 missing. It was the first time U.S. aircraft have been downed in the conflict, and came just 2 days after President Trump said in that national address we just played for you here that the U.S. has, quote, beaten and completely decimated Iran and was, quote, going to finish the job, and we're going to finish it very fast. Now, according to the Associated Press, in a brief telephone interview yesterday, President Trump declined to discuss the search and rescue effort. He was asked if it would impact negotiations with Iran, and he said, quote, no, not at all. No, it's war. Now, this also coming here after this post to Truth Social on Thursday from President Trump, warning that the U.S. military had not, quote, even started destroying what's left in Iran. President Trump said bridges would be next, then electric power plants. He added that new regime leadership knows what has to be done. Now, during that address, again, from Wednesday night, President Trump said the U.S. will hit Iran extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks.
TurboTax locations are now open in your neighborhood. So, hand off your taxes to an expert today. Now, local experts do your taxes with 100% accuracy.
We're going to go to Al Jazeera here.
What will be of interest and what they expect to see on Friday 6. So that coordination continues as
damaged U.S. aircraft, specifically low-flying U.S. aircraft, such as helicopters, for instance, during the rescue.
Welcome to the Global News Pod.
As well as fighter jets when during the bombing campaigns, and therefore it makes it, of course, it contradicts the narrative that is put forward by the United States, and now we have a visible example that Iran still has the capability to target and successfully shoot down U.S. aircraft. Making this, of course, very important for Iran to demonstrate the capability to resist. And most likely, the kinds of air defenses that Iran is using, such as man-portable air defenses, will be much more difficult to locate. Therefore, it's not possible to completely eliminate the Iranian ability to threaten U.S. aircraft.
So it looks like when it comes to the attempt to rescue the servicemen, it looks like Iran and the US are trying to get there first for different reasons, it seems. What are the scenarios that you could see play out here?
Well, there are several scenarios. The first scenario would be Iran finding the pilot first, and the second scenario would be the US finding the pilot first. And then you have 2 conditions, whether the pilot is dead or alive. It seems like the pilot is still alive, and therefore it would be expected, given the fact that the U.S. and air crew members and special forces undergo survival, evasion, resistance, and escape training, that he will try to blend with the terrain and to survive as long as possible, to make it possible for the U.S. crews to locate him and to rescue him. But then again, you have the contradiction of if he hides well and conceals his location, because the U.S. is operating from the air, it needs constant intelligence and surveillance in order to be able to locate him. Besides, some reports indicate that the pilot doesn't speak Persian, which means that it will be difficult for him to negotiate with the Iranians should he be captured by civilians, or should he be found by civilians. And therefore, it's a race for time because right now we have this critical window of up to 72 hours where both sides are trying to get hold of the pilot for both military and political purposes.
And Trump has previously mocked former US President Jimmy Carter's legacy for multiple reasons, and that includes Operation Eagle Claw back in 1980, a failed rescue operation effectively whereby 8 servicemen were killed, and that was while trying to rescue American hostages. Does he now risk the tables turning on him, so to speak, over this missing crew member, and if this were to happen again?
To a certain extent, this is the irony of history repeating itself. Of course, it is risky, as I said before, because Iran still retains the capability to target U.S. aircraft. And even locating the pilot doesn't necessarily mean it will be easy to extract him. So the operation is very risky. And generally speaking, doctrinally, you wouldn't want to lose more personnel by trying to save one person. So yes, it could potentially escalate if the rescue aircraft is shot down by the Iranian side. So we could see a repeat here. Right now, it's still too difficult to judge what is going to happen. But what we need to understand is that it's dangerous to underestimate the capabilities that the Iranian military and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard still have.
Right, now Iran says that it's used a different defensive system to down these jets. We know that it has 2 allies, China and Russia, that have been helping Iran throughout this, perhaps not at the moment, but certainly when it comes to military wear and technology. The infrared technology that they're saying that they've been using to down these 2 planes, how reliant is Iran at the moment on China or Russia for its defensive strategies?
Well, as far as their infrared technology is concerned, what I can say is that it is possible, not just because Russia and China have infrared sensors, that Iran has been using infrared sensors as part of its air defense network. But generally speaking, now that Russia specifically has made a lot of modifications to what used to be the Shahed 136, there is a possibility that technologies will be shared with Iran in order to be incorporated in its drone fleet. And when it comes to China, Iran has also been receiving different technological components from China, including directed energy weapons, peak laser weapons. Again, these would be used against UAVs. So I think that both in terms of a certain degree of intelligence sharing as well as of technological know-how, there is a constant exchange among the 3. And of course, North Korea would be another one.
All right, thank you very much for your thoughts there. Marina Miron speaking to us from Munich. Now, an airstrike has hit the perimeter of Iran's Bushehr nuclear power plant in the south. 1 person was killed in that attack. Initial assessments indicated there was no damage to the plant's main units. The Atomic Energy Organization of Iran says this is the 4th attack on the plant since the start of the war. It warns that significant damage to the facility could lead to a major nuclear accident with regional consequences that would be, quote, irreparable. Multiple US and Israeli airstrikes have hit the Mashhad petrochemical special economic zone, and that's in southwestern Iran, and it houses a number of petrochemical facilities. 3 explosions were reported there, and smoke was seen rising from the site, with at least 5 people reported as injured. And in Tehran, parts of one of the country's most elite universities has been damaged. Shahed Ph.D. University is one of Iran's top engineering and science education facilities, and several of its buildings were heavily damaged in a strike on Friday. Well, our correspondent, Tawhid Asadi, visited the university and sent us this report from the scene of the attack.
I'm in the campus of Shahed Ph.D. University, located in the northern parts of the Iranian capital, Tehran. And behind me, you can see actually the Institute for Plasma and Laser Research, which was heavily damaged as a result of this this recent round of the continued campaign of the airstrikes by the Americans and Israelis, the amount of damage is unbelievably massive, not only to this building, but also where I was walking through the different parts of the campus, including a dormitory. And we know that this specific institute targeted is critically important. It was founded in 2003 by Dr. Tehranchi, the former head of the Azad University and one of the scientists of the country that was assassinated in the war that happened back in June. And right now we see that one of the institutes founded by him was impacted. And behind me, as you can see, this is the damage, the huge amount of damage to this building and the debris, the equipment related to this institute is all around, showing the huge amount of blast that took place. And, this is the scope of the airstrikes across the country that is expanding in a sense. And now there are growing concerns about the civilian infrastructure, specifically schools and universities being targeted. It is not the first one. We know that 3 other major universities, this is obviously the third one, being targeted. And right now you can see this is the building that right now you're seeing is not the institute, but the dormitory in which students used to live. Fortunately, we don't have the growing concern about the fatalities as students were outside for the Nowruz holidays. But it's still, speaking of the infrastructure, it is really massive. We know that prior to that, we've got the University of Science and Technology being targeted. The airstrikes by the Americans and Israelis put a huge amount of impact on them, and that is located in the eastern parts of the capital, where heavy bombardments have been happening over the past weeks. And related to that university also was Dr. Shamandari, one of the associate professors of Iran's University of Science and Technology, who was assassinated alongside with his 11 and 18-year-old children. The Iranian side is interpreting that as a war crime. It is interpreting that, according to the spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a systematic attack on the academic foundations of the country, which is going on. We know that in addition to the 2 universities, this one and the one in the eastern part of the capital, there is also Isfahan University of Technology, which was also targeted a couple of days ago. And this is obviously the continuation of the actually attacks that are targeting the infrastructure of the country.
All right, well, it's not just universities, as you saw there. Iran's ports, energy, and even water facilities have also been targeted in US-Israeli strikes over several weeks. Damaging or destroying these sites has major implications for Iranian civilians and also for the country's economy. Julian,
it does seem as though they are preparing for ground forces. The United States and Israel looks like they're setting up the chessboard for a ground invasion. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the lozenges and drops. We're going into the allergy season. It's really important to mitigate those allergies right away. Orange Splash, vitamin C, with structural nail silver, Manuka honey with structural nail silver, and the drops. You can get it in cherry flavor, honey and lemon, and also in blueberry. All made from structural nail silver. This is going to help to improve your oral cavity and neutralize and maintain a barrier for your oral pharynx. That's super important to reduce allergies and also to mitigate anything during the cold season. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the drops and the lozenges, be prepared. The moment you have that throat irritation, take it right away. And let's say you're doing spring cleaning and it's really dusty. Use these, and this will create that barrier so you don't get sick, right? It's really important. They're very effective. So please go to my store and get a few bags of the drops and the lozenges. Very effective, and has the structural nail silver in it. All right, let's go to, I want to go to BBC talking about the Strait of Hormuz.
Welcome to the Global News Podcast on YouTube. Hello, I'm Jeanette Jalil, and with me is our world news correspondent, Joe Inwood. So, Joe, let's talk today about the crucial oil and gas route Strait of Hormuz, which has been blockaded by Iran since the war began more than a month ago. Now, that's caused energy prices to surge, but in recent days, we have started to see more ships getting through.
Yeah, Jeanette, I think since the start of this, the phrase we've used is a sort of a blockade or a closure of the strait. But actually, that's not technically accurate because a small number of ships have been getting through. What they all have in common, for the most part, is that they are linked either to the Iranians, obviously, or to other countries that are deemed to be non-hostile. So there's some connected to India, some connected to Pakistan, some connected to Greece as well. Greece was a huge player in the shipping market, and of course China, who are a big Iranian ally. So we are seeing small numbers get through, with reports that they're having to pay some sort of transit fee on occasion, or that diplomatic leverage is being used in order to get them through.
And for the first time, a vessel linked to France got through this week.
Yeah, so this was a ship that is owned apparently by the French, although actually registered to Panama. There's quite often you hear of big ships that are tankers that you fly under a foreign flag for various political or legal reasons. But yeah, there are reports that one French ship has got through as well. Now, we should say we don't know the details. We don't know how that was negotiated, whether it was a political decision or whether there was some other sort of interaction that took place. But yes, there does seem to have been one get through.
So let's talk about how these ships are getting through, because some people are saying that there's a kind of toll booth system that's been set up by the Iranian regime. What do we know about that?
Yeah, this is really extraordinary. So the suggestion is we should say, with a lot of this, it is, it's happening in the shadows, clearly. People are not talking about this publicly, mainly because the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, by many, many countries are designated as a terrorist organization. There are lots of sanctions, both on Iranian oil and on them as an organization. So people aren't doing this publicly. But the suggestion is that in order to negotiate safe passage through the straits, what they're doing is they're paying some sort of intermediary company that deals with the IRGC. They give them something in the order of $2 million is what's discussed. And that basically allows them to be escorted through the straits close to the Iranian waterline. Again, we don't know if the escorting is necessary because of the risk of sea mines. That's something that really I know is a major concern for shipping companies, for other governments. The idea they might mine the Strait of Hormuz, but by paying this large amount of money, it seems that these ships are able to negotiate safe and free passage. Now, just to discuss the amounts here, 2 million is also the capacity in barrels of quite a lot of these oil tankers. So what you're looking at is a situation where an oil tanker carrying 2 million barrels of oil might have to pay $2 million. Sounds like a lot, but when you consider that the price of a barrel of oil has gone up many, many more times than that, from sort of 60-ish or so up to more than 100 at points, there are probably some shipping companies that are saying, well, actually, we're not happy about this, but it does probably make financial sense.
And for many Western nations in particular, a toll booth system just isn't acceptable, as you say, because of the sanctions and also because of international law.
Yeah, so there was a meeting yesterday, it was hosted by the UK, where the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, basically got 40 other sort of like-minded nations together, and they have rejected this as an idea. They basically said it's a breach of international law, you're not allowed to do that. But you could imagine that the Iranians, who have said, we've had a huge amount of destruction done to our territory, the Americans aren't going to pay the reparations that we seek. They might start to say, well, hang on a second, this is a way for us to recoup some of the costs that we've incurred. And if international shipping has to pay $1 per barrel, well, international shipping and the international oil industry can cope with that. I don't think that is going to be seen as acceptable by the Western governments. But whether there's a big difference between whether they say, we don't think this is acceptable, but then actually go, well, we can't do anything about it, because that's the main thing. Nobody else seems to be coming up with an alternative. I mean, how to stop this partial blockade? Donald Trump has said repeatedly, just go in and take it. It's easy. Well, the truth is, it's not easy. It's going to be incredible.
Build on-brand assets in no time with Canva's AI-powered design generator. Simply type an idea and watch it.
The truth is, it's not easy. It's going to be incredibly difficult, incredibly dangerous. The Iranians have got significant capacity to target this shipping, to lay landmines. They've got small, fast ships. They've got naval drones. And I'm pretty sure if you introduced a system whereby every single ship that was going through the Strait of Hormuz had to have a naval escort and do so under the risk of fire, that would cost a lot more than the potential toll, I think, might be the calculation that these companies and governments make. And so it could be that they think, well, this is a price worth paying. Again, we just don't know at this point. There'll be all sorts of problems about how that happens. As I said, it would not be, it might invalidate their insurance. There would be problems with making that sort of payment. And of course, they could face repercussions for breaching American, European sanctions. So it's really, really complicated. But evidently, some carriers are saying that this might be something that's worth doing for now.
And time is running out, because even if the war ends today, the Strait of Hormuz could effectively remain mostly blockaded. And if it does, that could have devastating consequences for many poorer nations between Africa and Asia.
We're already seeing it. Just to use as an example, Pakistan, who I mentioned before. Now, Pakistan are very much considered to be a kind of a friendly nation by the Iranians. They're the ones who have said they're happy to host talks. They're trying to convene other influential regional states. They have just put up the price of their diesel by about 50%. Now, that is going to have a devastating consequence for small businesses. I mean, we've seen footage of row upon row upon row of, blokes on motorbikes queuing up to get petrol, only putting tiny bits in. These are people who are not wealthy, do not have a huge amount of disposable income, and probably cannot take the idea that the cost of running their motorbike has nearly doubled. So yeah, and of course, not just that, you've got fertilizer, which is going to have a huge consequence for Africa. You've got jet fuel, that's having a global impact. This is not just about oil and gas. It's about a huge range of things. And as you say, that will have serious consequences for large parts of the world and the developing world especially.
And let's not forget the crews that are stuck on these ships, have been stuck there for weeks now, some of them with supplies running low.
Yeah, there's thousands, tens of thousands maybe, of people sitting on these ships, mostly young men, lots of them from the developing world, who are going to be trapped in increasingly difficult positions. We've had some accounts sent into the BBC or some work done by our colleagues online, talking to them, talking to the captains, talking to the crews, and they paint an increasingly desperate picture. I mean, firstly, there's the concern around being under fire. We have seen some tankers that have been hit, and that is, that's a real risk, and it's really concerning and presumably very stressful for them and for their families. But then also, how are they going to get resupplied? They might have, you don't travel with an infinite, larder on your ship. They're going to be down to a few weeks, maybe a couple of months worth of food. We've heard talk about rationing, and of just an increasingly difficult and stressful and potentially dangerous life for these people who, once again, this isn't, we are not talking about people who are, living a life of luxury or wealthy people. These are, often, poor working sailors from the developing world who are being forced to endure really difficult situations as a consequence of a war that they had no part in starting, but are the victims of.
Thanks very much, Joe. That was the BBC's Joe Inwood joining me tonight.
The international community should not put up with having to pay a toll to Iran. But our military should have secured the strait by now. I really believe that. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the magnesium and zinc. This will help to boost up your immune system and help with brain function. Magnesium is super important for brain function. Too many people do not take enough magnesium in their supplementation. It's really important to take. Go to my store and get the magnesium and zinc. And it's dual purpose. It'll help with your brain function and help with your immune system. Another great stack to take is the ashwagandha root with the lignans. What this will do is it'll help with your immune system, your endocrine system, your cardiovascular system, and brain function. Why? Because it's soaking up free radicals, it's bringing down inflammation. Ashwagandha root will help with bringing down that inflammation. It helps to control cortisol levels. All right. See, a lot of people don't realize that when you have chronic levels of cortisol, it starts to do damage to your organs, your tissues, and suppresses your immune system. So if you control the cortisol, the high levels of cortisol, what you're actually doing is improving your immune system and allowing your body to heal. It also will help to control your blood glucose levels. So it's reducing that inflammatory response at the vascular level. So that's really important for your vascular system and for your brain function. Now, lignans soaks up free radicals, brings down inflammation, and will also help with the brain function, the cardiovascular system, and the immune system. So stack these together, you get the max benefit. It's really important. You can also stack it with the turmeric that will soak up free radicals and bring down inflammation. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements that I offer. Stack them the way I'm telling you to get the max benefit to slow down the aging process.
To the U.S. to sell this and for the Trump administration to walk away at this point. There's also a lot of momentum, I'm sure, in the U.S. government to get this soldier back and to do whatever it takes to get him or her back into the United States. So with that effort, it will be hard to wind down the rest of the operations, not provide the air cover that's needed for continued operations or to continue planning for retracting this individual if he or she is still alive.
Now, Iran and the US are racing to find the missing American pilot who was yesterday shot down over the Persian Gulf. They're thought to be in southern Iran. Iranian officials are offering awards of around £50,000 to citizens who helped capture the missing airman. Both President Trump and his Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, had repeatedly said that Iran's anti-aircraft defenses had been decimated. So what's likely to be going on in the search for the missing American serviceman? Well, let's ask Mark Gustafsson, now a Senior Director of Analysis at Eurasia Group. But for 2 decades, Mark Gustafsson was on the National Security and Intelligence beat. He served in the White House under President Obama. He served in President Trump's administrations twice and President Biden's. He's been the head of the White House Situation Room, the White House Chief of Intelligence, and spent 15 years at the CIA as well. Welcome to the show, Mark Gustafsson.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Tell us what is going on, do you think, in the White House? Is the search for this missing airman now their top priority?
I'm sure it is. This is always a very precarious moment for the U.S. government. The Situation Room, I imagine, has been working around the clock all through the night last night, trying to locate and put together operations to rescue this soldier wherever he or she might be. I think that this also means that for the U.S., it's a lot more challenging to withdraw from the war in Iraq if the Iranians do take a hostage. This is similar to what we saw with Israel and Hamas, where the Israelis had hostages in Hamas custody, and that made the war a lot more challenging, and it made it a lot more difficult for Israel to pull away. So the United States could find itself getting into a similar situation where if there are hostages inside Iran, it makes it more difficult for the U.S. to end operations and withdraw.
We haven't perhaps reflected yet on the success of at least recovering one of the aircrew. I mean, it's an incredibly dangerous and complex operation, presumably, because it'll involve helicopters, special forces, trying to track the beacon on the aircrew's person, and in very hostile territory. I mean, the logistics must be extraordinary.
I think that's exactly right. This is hundred.
How's biz, Ash? Great, especially with the help of zero accounting software. I can keep my cash flow flowing by giving customers more ways to pay. Oh. Search zero with this.
I think that's exactly right. This is hundreds of miles inside Iranian territory. And the Iranians have already proven that they can shoot down some of these planes, which means there are probably weapons on the ground that are capable of taking down some of the rescue planes or helicopters that might be coming in. That makes for a very dangerous environment and makes this operation more challenging than others I've seen in the past.
And what will it do in terms of the White House recalibrating its operations in Iran? Because clearly, with Donald Trump claiming that Iran can't do a thing about US planes flying through its airspace, it's quite clear they can do a thing. It might be a one-off, but it might completely recalibrate how what aircraft fly over Iran now?
I think it does change the game. It makes it difficult for the long-term play for the United States because if the Iranians do have a hostage in custody, it makes it a lot harder to pull away, declare victory, and take an off-ramp, which some people expected President Trump to do in the next couple of weeks. If there is a hostage in Iranian custody, it makes it a lot more difficult. And then in terms of additional operations and the offensive plan to continue to strike targets across Iran, the U.S. military is going to be more hesitant to do that now that they've already lost a plane. They lost 2 planes yesterday, and so this has put them in a difficult situation in terms of what's next.
So you served under Obama, who of course oversaw the famous surge in Iraq. You served under Biden, who oversaw the troop withdrawal from Afghanistan. So this is very familiar territory to you. This is, as it were, asymmetric warfare. You mentioned earlier the risk that the air crew, the survivor, is captured by the Iranians and the propaganda value that will have, the impact it will have in drawing America further in to a war that, in theory, Donald Trump says there's only 2 or 3 weeks to go. How do you kind of strategize when, to put it in slightly crude terms, a small win for the Iranians can eclipse big wins for the America and Israel?
I think that's right. It makes the PR strategy for the United States a lot more difficult because it's harder to declare victory, leave Iran and say that you finished the job if there's still an American hostage that's in Iranian custody. So yeah, it'll be challenging for the U.S. to sell this and for the Trump administration to walk away at this point. There's also a lot of momentum, I'm sure, in the U.S. government to get this soldier back and to do whatever it takes to get him or her back into the United States. So with that effort, it will be hard to wind down the rest of the operations, not provide the air cover that's needed for continued operations or to continue planning for retracting this individual if he or she is still alive.
Are you surprised by the Iranian resilience? I mean, we know that the Americans and the Israelis seem able to take out very senior leadership in Iran almost at will. It's quite clear that they've penetrated quite a lot of the higher echelons of the Iranian armed services and security services. They are obviously able to take out the main infrastructure that any nation would rely on to fight a war, and yet still Iran is able to close the Strait of Hormuz. It's still able to bring down a US fighter jet. It's quite clear that a land operation would be fraught with difficulty. How have the Iranians managed to kind of resist this overwhelming pressure for so long?
Having watched this for many years, there are a few things that have surprised me, and I think the Iranians have been more resilient than I expected in some ways. The first is the full-on attack on the Gulf states, neighboring Iran, I think surprised a lot of people in the security establishment because Iran is a partner with some of these countries, trades with some of these countries. So the idea that there would be a full-on onslaught of missiles and drones into these countries, I think took some folks by surprise. The second part that I think has been challenging is that the U.S. military has struggled to destroy the stockpile of missiles and drones across the country. I think that these missiles and drones are buried in rock and granite, very hard to get to. Even if they do destroy them, the Iranians can sometimes dig them out and use the drones and missiles just weeks later. But I think that these missiles and drones have been more dispersed across the country than some of the folks expected them to be. And then Iran's will to fight after losing probably 40 to 50 of its senior most leaders within the IRGC and within the political establishment after the decapitation strike against the supreme leader, I think was surprising how quickly they were able to respond and how much structure they had around their response in the days after that strike occurred. So yes, I do think that they've put up a bigger fight and have been more organized than a lot of people expected.
And of course, that immediately makes one think about the boots on the ground strategy. I mean, it seems inevitable that President Trump will launch some sort of ground invasion. Karg Island is the obvious target, not a ground invasion, as it were, of the mainland of Iran. But again, it's not going to be, it's a frivolous phrase, a walk in the park, but you know what I mean. It is not going to be as easy as perhaps some people thought it might have been.
No, it's not going to be easy. Getting through the Strait of Hormuz right now with the Navy ships and the Marine ships that have just arrived and are on the way is going to be very dangerous if they attempt to do that. And there are a lot of cruise missiles, ballistic missiles along the coast. The straits have been mined, and they probably will continue to try to mine them. And so this will be quite a challenge for the U.S. Marines and the U.S. Navy just to get in there. My expectation in seeing the numbers that have been moved in and the number of Marines they have and the ships that are arriving, and a lot of them still will not arrive for another two weeks plus. I don't expect any activity or any moves against Karg Island, any of the other islands or the coastal areas for at least a month, given the numbers that they have now. So I think we're in this for the long haul.
Yeah, could they hold a piece of territory in Iran that effectively protects the Strait of Hormuz? Would that be a realistic strategy?
So basically, Trump is not going to de-escalate in 2 to 3 weeks. This thing is looking like a ground offensive.
They would have to hold multiple parts of the Strait of Hormuz. And the challenge is that a lot of the islands in the Strait of Hormuz are heavily populated. The primary island, Keshem Island, which is right at the narrowest point of the Strait of Hormuz, has about 150,000 people on it. So to move U.S. Marines into that territory and try to secure it with that many people there, I think is a tall order and will require a lot more troops than what have been sent to the region and what are moving to the region in the next 2 weeks.
Given everything that we've seen and everything that you've seen in your long career, I mean, the parallels with Iraq are very similar in some ways, which is you go in with a lightly armed force to take out the regime and you assume that good things will follow. You find out you're going to be there for 20 years trying to stabilize the country. This is not a presidency that necessarily thinks deeply and strategically, but as objectively as you can, this could be a multi-year commitment by successive American administrations.
It could last a while. Yeah, this is similar to Iraq in some ways and different in others. I think that the key difference now, and one of the things that's tempting for this administration and others, is that there are a lot of U.S. capabilities with AI, other technologies, drone surveillance, things like that, that probably give the U.S. military more confidence about its ability to launch an operation and fight a war remotely without putting boots on the ground. And that's a key difference between Iraq and this war. And it's a test because the U.S. hasn't fought a war at this scale remotely and with these kinds of tools before. And I think there are a lot of folks who are watching to see how that'll play out.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. That's Mark Gustafsson, now the Senior Director of Analysis at Eurasia Group, and who formerly held an array of key security and intelligence roles at the White House and with the CIA.
All right. We're going to go to Fox News here. About Iran's internet blackout stretches past 1 month. See, we really need to have a better understanding of what is going on in the secular community within Iran on how they are or are not trying to overthrow the IRGC and the theocratic regime.
The internet shutdown has been going on for over a month with connectivity about just 1% of normal levels. The senior Israeli intelligence official telling Fox News this is a blackout on truth. The regime is hiding reality from its own people. They don't want the Iranian people to see how badly they're getting hit. Our next guest is an Iranian national whose activism led to his imprisonment in Iran. He created a crowdsourced mapping website and an app to provide Iranian civilians with crucial information, holistic resilience. The executive director is with us right now, Ahmad Ahmadian, and he joins us. Ahmad Ahmadian, thanks so much for joining us. So tell me right now, what's the status of the internet in the country?
So thank you for having me on the show. It's been more than 33 days that there has been a total internet blackout in Iran, and the only way that internet connectivity existed in Iran and the information that is coming out of Iran is the few number, like, tens of thousands of Starlink devices that are inside the country, and some of the VPNs, when there is any international connectivity with the Iranian internet, they might work. But the only one that the government has not been able to shut down and cut off has been the tens of thousands of Starlink devices in Iran, that the number, might exceed more than 50,000 numbers. But that's still among the number of population, which is 92 million of the people. This is 0.1% of the population, and 99.9% of the people are still disconnected from the internet.
So what can we do cyber-wise to get the internet on there? We know they're putting themselves on national television every day for the people to see.
Well, the solution is Starlink at the moment. This is something that the government cannot shut down, and the question is, how can we put more more Starlink devices in the hands of people inside the country? People, bravely inside the country, they managed to get the Starlink devices to the country. The price has been always a hurdle, but thank you to President Trump, earlier in this January, the subscriptions were waived, but the cost of the Starlink devices are still so high. But people smuggled them inside the country. The prices in multiples of the thousands of dollars inside the country. But they are managing to establish a government-independent internet infrastructure that they cannot shut it down.
So what's the deal? What is the situation like in the country? Many are surprised there hasn't been more uprising.
Well, people are seeing the weakening of the repression apparatus of the regime. As we saw, in the early days of the war, Operation Epic Fury, the IRGC bases were being targeted, the besieged, centers, the militia centers, and the checkpoints in the streets are being targeted. People are waiting to, they see this as an opportunity, but it's still, they need to be connected. They need to be mobilized. And then, once the day comes, they can mobilize and come out and take out this regime and finish the job, because you can bomb the regime's repression apparatus, but if you want to finish the job, you have to empower the people who are inside the country to take out this regime. And for that, they need empowerment through the connectivity, especially with the American genius and big technology that has been the number one enemy of this the government. So they can mobilize, they can coordinate.
I guess there's legitimate fear. If you're caught with a Starlink, you're going to be killed, right?
Yes, but despite of that, if you go on the street, if you do a protest, you're also going to be killed. We saw it in a month and a half ago. People went to the streets, for the normal demands, and they faced a massacre by the regime security forces. 30 to 40,000 of them were killed. So, if this is a lifeline for many people, and it has been in the past, the satellite TVs were also illegal in Iran, but enough number of people got those devices so the regime could not, go after every single person, and, they
flood the zone with Starlink, So flood the zone with Starlink receivers. That could be the answer. So thank you very much, Ahmad. I'm going to have to leave it there. Ahmadi, and thank you very much. I'm Steve Doocy. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interview.
The people in Iran need to start pushing back. Even if there's going to be casualties, they need to fight for their country. If not, maybe the United States shouldn't be there. Knock out the military apparatus, knock out their leadership, and then walk away. The United States should not be fighting for the freedoms of the Iranians if they're not willing to fight for their freedoms. Please go to my store and get the Clarity Factor. Clarity Factor will help to get rid of brain fog, allow you to concentrate, and it will improve your memory and improve your cognition. Over time, what will happen is that your neurons will link up to each other more. You'll have better neural connections. And that will mean that you will be able to think better and have better memory. But not just that, you'll sleep better. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Clarity Factor. This is a very powerful neurostack. Myotrol will help to reduce atrophy. It helps with the gene expression to build muscle and maintain muscle. This is super important to take if you're male or female, 40 years of age or older. Do some resistance training and take the Myotrol. This will also help to boost up your energy levels because it helps the health of the mitochondria. If you're an athlete, younger or older, you will benefit from taking Myotrol also to improve the strength for your sport. Olive leaf extract is a dual purpose. It helps to boost up the immune system and helps with your cardiovascular system. It brings down inflammation and helps you control your lipid profile. And lastly, a probiotic. You can get it in the powdered form or in the veggie cap form, but a good probiotic is going to improve your gut biome, improve your metabolism, allow you to absorb your nutrients, reduce leaky gut syndrome, boost up your immune system at the gut level. You're going to maintain and build up that mucosal layer. Your IgAs will increase. You'll have better sleep, better brain function, and a better communication to your liver. And your liver helps to detoxify your body and helps to metabolize. So it's really important to get the probiotics that I have, take them, and you'll notice that your overall health is improving, including your skin. Skin health is tied to good gut health. All right. Let's go to France 24. Iran opens to negotiations. This was posted 10 minutes ago. Diplomacy shows signs of progress. Damage to global economy continues. Let's see what they have to say there. Maybe the title is a little misleading.
Notable activity in the Strait of Hormuz in the past 24 hours. 3 ships, including one co-owned by Japan, the other by a French company, able to cross safely, according to satellite tracking picked up on the seaway, according to marine traffic data. A container ship belonging to the French shipping group CMA CGM, a rare transit by a major European shipping group since March the 1st. Prior to that, reported 3 Greek vessels have been able to cross. At least 2,000 more ships remain stranded. It's more than 20,000 ships' crew still on board, some of them reportedly rationing. Now, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard continuing to threaten, quote, hostile countries. And it comes as the French president is in South Korea talking about finding a way to open the strait, days after France objected to UN resolution drafted by the Gulf states and the US to give legal right to force of opening the strait by, quote, any means necessary. Are the 2 means. Let's bring in Christian Bitchute, the Professor of International Relations at the University of Copenhagen and author of the book Understanding Maritime Security. Great to talk to you tonight, Professor. Let's begin on your understanding of this French vessel apparently being able to leave. What's your reading of that?
So it seems that diplomacy is starting to work. More and more ships are now passing through the strait, and that is in many ways good news. But obviously, it's still far from normal. Usually 140 ships go through the strait. But I think these are relatively positive signals that Iran is open for negotiations, and I'm optimistic that we are finding solutions. But unfortunately, none of this is going fast enough, and the damage to the global economy obviously continues.
This is interesting. Let me put this kind of context framing to you and see which you think is relevant right now. Wednesday, Bahrain drafts a UN resolution that, if agreed, legally authorises all members of the UN to take military action, force any means necessary to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. Didn't go through. It was changed because Russia, strategic ally, China, most important trade partner to Iran, were against it. France too. The wording from France is that they are concerned about proportionality under international law, avoiding another escalation. President Macron said as much in South Korea. And so that's changed. The vote goes ahead tomorrow. Now it's defensive means only. Is there a link? Are you saying that this diplomacy is being registered?
So diplomacy here works on several levels. One is the direct negotiation with Iran over the passage of individual ships, and that has been going on over the last weeks. And it was also India, Indonesia, and other countries got their ships through. So this is one level of diplomacy. Another very important level are the discussions on the UN Secretary General's fertilizer initiative that apparently has made some progress, but not as fast as was initially expected. And here the idea is to let ships through that carry fertilizer or humanitarian aid. And Oman has been proposed there as the site where the UN could do verification of vessels and so on. The other layer is the UN Security Council, and Bahrain has put forward an initial Security Council resolution a couple of weeks back, 2817, and that was passed in a historic situation because more than 135 states supported the resolution. The question now is, what is the next step in the UN Security Council? And in many ways, the idea that the strait could be opened by a military force is misleading. And in that sense, I can understand the resistance towards the idea that the resolution should operate under Chapter 7 and sanction the use of force. In military terms, we cannot go back to normal. Escorting ships through the straits is extremely difficult, and instead, without a ceasefire, we cannot go to the next stage of developing a regime for the strait where we can gradually have more and more ships passing through. So I do not expect to see a UN Security Council resolution being adopted by consensus that actually includes the use of force. But tomorrow we're most likely going to know more.
It's very interesting, Professor. So you're saying if there is an agreement at the Security Council, and again the language has changed from, quote, as you talked about, Charter 7 of the UN Charter, which is any means necessary. Again, France was concerned about preemptive strikes, to defensive means, which we don't know, but that would essentially be anything that is targeting the shipping. It could be escorted, and the right to fire back. Are you saying that if that goes ahead, you also don't think that is the most conducive way to actually getting this strait running as it was before?
Absolutely. It's really, really difficult to offer the level of protection that the shipping industry actually would require. And here we are looking at the broad range of weapons that Iran de facto has. It is very difficult to offer escort to a large number of ships, and even then, the risk that a ship gets hit is extremely high. And given the amount of ships that we are talking about, this is not really a viable option. And there's also the risk that Iran will integrate more and more countries as being de facto war parties, despite a UN Security Council resolution. That is also not what the shipping industry in the end is interested in. To open up the strait, we require a broader process, and very important, we should also start looking ahead in terms of what kind of setup do we need once the hostilities end, and there we should have all the plans ready in the drawer. And I know that this is already part of the negotiations in terms of how this can look like in the midterm, but also in the long-term future.
Tell me, Christine, what else is moving and why right now? We talked about, you mentioned something, the Iranians wanting to do a monitoring system with Oman. There's talk of money essentially paid, 2 million or so, 1.5 million per vessel. Help us understand who's paying what to move.
The owner of the ship.
So one important initiative is also led by the UK and France in terms of assembling the coalition that can actually establish a sort of mechanism once we have a ceasefire, once hostilities are over, and we know that over 40 nations that want to chip into that. The German Chancellor has spoken about a sort of contact group being established for that. Others speak about a Strait of Hormuz commission, and such a mechanism has been used in the past in counter-piracy situations, for instance. And it's an effective means to arrange a naval coalition, multilateral forces, but also have a strong link to the shipping industry, the insurance industry, and so on. The Iran currently charging for the passage is quite obviously not a sustainable solution in the long run. So, but at the same time, it's also signals that Iran is actually open to certain kinds of negotiations, and these will provide the seeds for the future arrangements that we need once a ceasefire is there, which hopefully is soon.
A brief thought, because there's lots of information going around about the thousands of ship's crew that are still in the Strait of Hormuz are around there and can't leave. Do you have any understanding of the situation they're facing for those still stranded?
Yeah, this has to be one of the priorities to get the seafarers out of there. And I do hope that over the next days we're going to see more and more ships actually passing through, so that the situation will, the tension will be released a little bit. But let's not forget, even if Iran would declare tomorrow that the strait is open, this will have long-term impacts, because shipping is a fragile, globally interconnected system, and going back to normal will take quite some time, and that unfortunately also means tricky situations for the seafarers. Fortunately, at least the International Maritime Organization is really prioritizing the cause of the seafarers, and that is good to know. But obviously, the International Maritime Organization is relatively limited in terms of what it can do with its mandate.
Professor, really good to talk to you tonight. Thank you for your time. Professor Christian Burger, the International Relations Professor.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the resveratrol. The resveratrol will help with youthful gene expression. It's really important. It gets rid of cells that are in senescence. It'll boost up your mitochondria so you produce more ATP. This will help with the basal layer of your skin, so your skin is healthier. So please go to my store and get the resveratrol. This stacks really well with C60 and Boomer Boost to slow down the aging process. Digestive enzyme complex. This supplement has the enzymes to help your pancreas. It helps to break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. Super important if you're 40 years of age or older. No matter how healthy you are, your pancreas doesn't work as well as when it was younger. So please go to my store, get the digestive enzyme complex to help break up your proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids and reduce the load on your pancreas. You'll be able to absorb your nutrients better. Omega-3, very important for cardiovascular health. It brings down inflammation. It helps you to lower LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. And by taking omega-3, you're reducing plaque formation at the vascular level. And vitamin B complex. The first 4 B vitamins is used in the electron transport chain within your mitochondria to produce ATP, so you have more energy. Your cellular metabolism will improve, and you'll be able to protect your neurons with B12. Vitamin B complex is super important to take if you're 40 years of age or older, male or female. Improving your cellular metabolism, getting more energy is going to help to slow down the aging process, and protecting those neurons are super important. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. It's all caps, discount 5. Click the link in the description of this video and all my videos. Go to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right, now what we're going to do is talk about LNG. This is from Fox Business.
Middle Eastern oil superpowers searching for a way to avoid the dangerous Strait of Hormuz and yet still move crude to the rest of the world. The Financial Times reports today that Middle East officials are now looking to build out a network of crude and liquid natural gas pipelines through Iraq, Jordan, Syria, or Turkey as they weigh the threat that Iran could seize and then totally control the Strait of Hormuz. They are not the only ones trying to protect their energy access through brand new pipelines. Alaska is advancing a proposal for its 800.
So why would you be advancing pipelines in Alaska and in the Middle East if you think that the Middle East will be solved in 2 or 3 weeks? In addition, take a look at my previous episode. And I go into detail why there's going to be a world curse on 9/11/2026. And it's going to last all the way through the first week of October of 2027. And the things that are happening are the emergent property of a complex social system based on the activities that we are doing in the Middle East. And there is going to be a curse. Bad things are going to happen around the world for everyone. All right? Now, I've been saying this for a long time, not just last episode. I've been saying this for over 2 years. So now, by advancing the pipelines, that is proving the theory from the professor that I played yesterday. He's an Asian professor, I don't remember his name. But the idea is that the United States is going to fail in the Middle East. But in the end, it's actually the United States will benefit. And the two major superpowers that are going to rise up from this chaotic event that's taking place in the Middle East will be Russia and the United States because of our energy. And this is the reason why the United States is going to amalgamate Mexico, Canada, Greenland, Central America, and the northern part of South America. This is going to be called the Technate. And as we move into this new world order, government and our society will be cybernetic. Now, cybernetic is an older used term back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. In a modern way to describe cybernetics is the use of technology and AI to make decisions, and that there will be a technocratic society, which is not a constitutional republic. All right?
Mile-long AKLNG pipeline. The Trump administration has been trying to fund this project since before the war, but now it's been elevated from a state project to what Energy Secretary Chris Wright said is probably our most single important energy infrastructure project of this whole administration. Joining me now is the man who is right there in Alaska running the state, Governor Mike Dunleavy. Governor, thank you for joining us. Glad you're here with us on Good Friday. We appreciate it. Can you give us a sense, because this is privately funded, so it's not using taxpayer money, correct?
Correct. It's a privately funded project. It's huge. It'll be the largest project probably ever in the Arctic, and quite possibly the largest in the Pacific for some time to come. And so it's a massive project, 800-mile pipeline, liquefaction plant.
And this is really important because what does that mean? It means that we're going to be able to export LNG to Asia. And that will circumvent LNG export from the Middle East. And this is the reason why the Middle Eastern crisis will benefit the United States in the long run, even though we lose the war.
Down south on Tidewater in the North Pacific, and on the North Slope is a gas conditioning plant. So it's huge, but we think it's time. The time is right. The time is now for obvious reasons.
Well, yeah, here's an obvious reason. We saw West Texas Intermediate, the crude that trades here in the United States, soar to $111 and change just yesterday. Big, huge moves. And there has been, since the war began, there's such a pronounced spike. People are paying more at the gas pumps. So obviously, this is the kind of thing that, could you say, once it's up and running, could ease the situation no matter what type of geopolitical event is happening?
Well, you bring up a good point. So Alaska has had since 1977 the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline pumping oil. We've pumped about 18 billion with a B, billion barrels through that pipeline, and we have billions of more to pump through that pipeline. We're also talking about a gas pipeline that would parallel that pipeline, the oil pipeline, through half of the state and then swerve off to the west for a little bit, and then also go to Tidewater. The gas is important for not just Alaska, but our Asian allies. And as you see what's happening in the Persian Gulf, what was hoped to be a stable area, even though most people knew that there was always going to be some volatility there, has really just fallen apart over the last several weeks. And we don't know what the future is going to be. And so that risk involved in getting gas, I think, is what's going to be driving Asian customers, for example. And they are having deeper conversations with the private concern, the Glen Farm, that is spearheading this project for offtakes. And so you're going to see a lot of oil activity. We just had leases in NPRA, in which over 1.3 million acres of oil lease land was had here at a recent auction. And now we've got a gas situation that we think we can help our Asian allies with, since we are by far the closest state to Japan, Korea, and Taiwan.
Well, that's obviously a huge part of this entire project. It would really be beneficial to the United States because you're talking about a lot of revenue there. What about tax breaks that you would grant the company that is going to really spearhead this project?
Well, we're working with our legislature right now on bringing down the tax rates from our property tax. We have one of the highest property tax rates in the country, which is oftentimes a barrier for business, especially projects of this magnitude. So we're in discussions now with our local municipalities that would be affected, as well as our legislature. We're hopeful that we can get a change to this tax process so that it helps with the economics for this project, because in the end, Alaska is also going to use some of this gas. Most of it will be shipped overseas, but we'll also use some of this gas, and we don't want our ratepayers paying a high rate for gas because of a high property tax imposed on this project.
I like that idea, definitely. You're talking about natural gas, talking about oil, yes, but natural gas in particular, everybody talks about how 20 million barrels a day go through the Strait of Hormuz when it's open, but that's barrels of oil. It is also a key choke point in the Strait of Hormuz to get liquid natural gas through. And so I think that has been a major issue as well. LNG is so plentiful in the United States, certainly in Alaska, but also the lower 48. Give us a sense of how you feel the United States could be the leader technologically when it comes to extracting in a clean and positive way all of this natural gas and converting it to liquid.
Well, I think we are a leader in extracting it, as you said, in a clean way. So the Alaska, by proximity, is probably the best bet for our Asian allies, because we're only 8 days by ship to Tokyo. The Gulf gas is 20-some days going through the canal, then going across the Pacific. Remember, we're the closest state by far to Asia. We're the most western state in the United States, the northernmost, but the westernmost as well. So our shipping times to Asia are very, very quick, quicker than Strait of Hormuz, quicker than coming from Australia, quicker than coming from the Gulf. So Alaska really is a place to really look to for gas. And I'll say this, Alaska pioneered LNG export in the world in the late 1960s. We were the first place on the planet to actually export LNG. We did that, we exported to Japan for 50 straight years, uninterrupted, and that's the key. There's no Strait of Hormuz you have to go through. It's just the North Pacific, uncontested waters. And of course, we have a large naval presence in the North Pacific as well. So if you want safe, secure gas, safe, secure oil, you get it from Alaska.
Alaskans do pay.
And this is the reason why I keep on saying that the Pacific is where the real game is. not the Middle East. Because when China tries to contest the first island chains and the second island chains, it's going to affect the archipelago of Alaska. It's going to affect our allies like Japan, and it will affect the western island chain of Hawaii. A lot of people don't realize Hawaii is more than just 5 islands. It's like 130 islands. They're small, but they're American. And that's important because it projects all the way to Asia. Now, they are ancient islands of Hawaii because as Hawaii is basically lava flows from the deep sea percolating up. All right. And so as the tectonic plate has been moving over time, there is these islands that have been built up and then have receded because this basalt is easy to erode over time. So there's many island chains from Hawaii. But the point here is that if we lose our hegemonic power in the Pacific, we won't have energy dominance, military dominance, freedom of navigation dominance. That's the reason why China cannot take Taiwan. We need access to the 9-dash line. Hello? But all of those people that are America first are too stupid to understand this.
The 3 times the national average for energy, which is kind of ironic considering there's a lot of energy underneath the ground in Alaska. But you have talked about attracting a lot of data centers or even data centers that would be open to running on liquid natural gas. We cover the hyperscalers a lot. And they, at this point, are like, we don't care where we get our energy, whether it's nuclear, whether it's electric, natural gas. We want energy to build out our data centers. But how realistic is that if the cost of energy in Alaska is as high as it is?
Well, when you look at the cost of energy in Alaska, you're looking at also 220 plus communities that are off our road system that are on diesel. And we're working at bringing the cost of those small electricity costs and fuel costs down for those small communities through a whole host of hydro projects, other types of renewable projects as well. But when we talk about the gas line, that goes through the major population centers of Alaska, the middle of the state. And we believe we'll be able to have gas at 4, 5, 6 cents a kilowatt hour for data farm customers. The data farm customers are actually going to help reduce the cost for energy on the rail belt because our population is so small, the data farm needs are so big that our gas offtake will be small compared to that, which will lower the overall price because of these large hyperscalers. But when you factor in ambient temperatures are lower in Alaska, so less energy is needed to cool these data farms, large amounts of fresh water, large acreage, contiguous acreages of land, etc. It all comes together to make Alaska, I think, a great place for data farms.
I think I need to take a research trip to Alaska. I've never been.
You have to.
Okay, I'll ask.
Come up to our energy conference. We're having an energy conference in May. Okay. We have that energy conference every year, and people from all over the world come up, and you can see what we do here in Alaska.
Oh, I'm packing my bags. I want some of that salmon too. I'm all about food and chocolate.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the cleanse, which is 30 parts per million, or max 35, which is 35 parts per million. Take a teaspoon a day every day. Swish in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds, and then swallow it. What this will do is neutralize, improve the health of your oral cavity and your oral pharynx, maintain your mucosal barrier, and help the health of your epithelial cells in your oral pharynx. Super important during the cold season and the allergy season, but you should be doing this every day. Because with good oral hygiene, you're helping your cardiovascular health, but you're also boosting up your immune system. Take it every day. I've been doing this protocol for over 6 years, every day, teaspoon a day. Now, if you're not feeling well because of the cold season or someone around you is not feeling well, take a tablespoon or 2 a day. And then once everything's all clear, then go back to your maintenance dose of a tablespoon. But I've been doing this protocol for 6 years, and it's part of an anti-aging protocol. Max 35 or cleanse, or max 14. Take it every day, a teaspoon a day. Take the C60, the turmeric, the ashwagandha, the lignans, and the boomer boost. The multivitamin and the probiotics. You do that regularly, you do that every day, you're going to slow down the aging process. Why? Because you're targeting all of the things that are aging you. Your immune system goes down, so you're boosting up your immune system. Your endocrine system is disrupted. You're improving the health of your endocrine system. Your cardiovascular system starts to get clogged up. Well, you're improving your cardiovascular system. Your brain function starts to decline. Well, you're improving your brain function with this protocol. You're soaking up the free radicals that causes stress in the cell. You're boosting up the health of your mitochondria so you have more energy. So you're bringing down inflammation, you're boosting up energy, you're soaking up free radicals that cause oxidation, and all these different organ systems start to improve. So you're targeting all of the things that are actually aging you. And by keeping down inflammation, you're improving your joint health also. And when you keep inflammation down, you're reducing methylation of your genes. And that is a key biometric to determine your biological age. You have a chronological age based on your birth, but you also have a biological age. And different tissues have different ages. You can improve it by following my advice. So please go to my store and get those supplements that I just mentioned and stack them. Get the Max 35 and the cleanse. Take them every day. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. If you have muscle pain, a headache, tension headache, bruising, a sprain, joint pain, either from a sports injury or even from arthritis, take the Super Strong Relief. Super Strong Relief will alleviate within 90 seconds your pain. You apply it topically to give you temporary relief. It's a great product that works, right? And also go to my store and get the Structural Nano Silver Gel. You can get it in the tube form or in the quick dispenser. And it's dual purpose. You use it as a daily skincare to help to improve your skin. You apply it topically. If you have a cut, an abrasion, or a minor burn, put it on the lesion. It'll help to heal it quicker. Why? Because it keeps it clean. And if you have a cold or someone around you is not feeling well during the cold season, put it on your hands, around your mouth, around your eyes, around your ears, around your nose. Lightly coat your nostrils. They'll stay active 5.5 hours to neutralize. And you can do that with Perel. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Structural Nano Silver Gels. All right. Trump sent a stark warning to Iran. This is 18 minutes ago from Fox News. Let's see what they have to say.
Is, of course, day 2 in the urgent search for a missing U.S. airman after an American fighter jet was downed in Iran. Meanwhile, at least 6 people are hurt in central Israel after Iran fired a round of missiles, leaving behind this damage.
Our own Jonathan Hunt joins us from Tel Aviv with the very latest on both of those stories. Good morning.
Rachel, Kevin, Griff, good morning again to all of you. The Iran's military command has just announced on state TV that they shot down the F-15E using a new air defense system. And they say they are confident that that will ultimately give them, the Iranians, control of their airspace. That would, of course, be a monumental shift. If it were to happen, there is obviously always some bravado and bluff in Iranian state TV commentary on this. But the search, meantime, goes on for that missing
Well,
crew
that's
member
interesting
from
because
that-
if they didn't have new capability, it would have pushed questions against Hegseth and General Kane on why did you think that the surface-to-air missile capability of Iran was degraded over 90%. If there was no new capability, then Pete Hegseth was lying to the American public. But now, with Iran saying there's new capability, I'm willing to bet that they received something from China or Russia, probably Russia, and are using it, then it's plausible deniability for Pete Hegseth and General Kane to basically say, we didn't know this happened, but we're going to hunt it down and kill it. All right? And that's probably what happened. Was Russia probably produced something that they gave, and they're probably testing it out. But the bottom line is this. This war will not end, ever. Not just this war, but future conflict with Iran. All right? We're not going to solve this problem unless the IRGC is destroyed, the theocratic regime never is reconstituted, and the Iranian seculars actually have self-rule. If any of those don't happen, we are going to continue with a war with Iran in some fashion. Even if we end operations of epic fury, later down the road, we're going to have to mow the lawn again. So it's better to solve the problem now. Now, what I think should happen is Trump should say, we're taking gravity bombs, which are cheaper, we're going to run our B-52s, and we're going to level Tehran, and nothing will be left. It's going to look like Gaza. It's going to be a parking lot. All of it's going to be gone. And we're going to go one city after another, and we're going to gravity bomb every single fucking major city in Iran. That's what I would do.
F-15E, we have seen on Iranian state TV pictures of some of the wreckage, pictures of the ejector seat believed to have been used by the pilot who was successfully rescued. But the weapons systems officer sitting in the back seat of that F-15 is still missing at this point. The F-15E went down over southwestern Iran, a remote mountainous area, not an easy area, in which the U.S. search and rescue teams can operate. They came under small arms fire. Some of the helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft involved in that search. Two of the helicopters, as we understand it, were hit at one point. Crew members injured, but they did make it out to nearby Iraq safely. And as we understand it, those crew members are being treated now. Meantime, we also have learned that an A-10 Warthog with the U.S. Air Force also went down. That went down in the Strait of Hormuz, we are told. The pilot successfully recovered. And finally, back to the action we have seen here in central Israel today. A couple of missile alerts coming in. One, the most recent one, we were live with you at the top of the last hour. That thick black smoke we saw, we thought it might be a direct missile strike. Turns out it was actually the result of one of those cluster munitions. So a smaller strike than a direct missile itself would have been, but it hit a car. The fuel tank of that car exploded, and as you see there, that's what sent that smoke billowing into the air. But a number of people injured in the two strikes today. A demonstration once again that Iran retains the capability to hit here in Israel, and of course to hit its Gulf neighbors too, as we approach President Trump's Monday deadline, remember, for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face the destruction, as President Trump put it, of Iran's energy infrastructure. Back to you guys.
It's interesting.
Cluster munitions are terrible as well, Jonathan Hunt. Thank you. With that, let's bring in Saturday in America anchor.
I want to make a comment about that. All right. So the deadline, that 6-day deadline, is coming up. Is Trump gonna back down like he always does? Taco trade? Trump's looking weak. It's about time to actually say what you're gonna do, Trump. You gonna knock it out or not? Because if you don't, you're gonna look like a wussy again. But here's the rub. If they have captured one of our service members, if you hit facilities, you may increase the probability of them killing the service member. So what do you do? So it's actually better that this service member is dead than captured. So Trump worries me because he'll say something and not do it. All right. What we're going to do is, we're going to continue on with this Fox News.
McEnany, Kaylee, good morning. And let's pick up where Jonathan Hunt left off, which is we have this Monday deadline to reopen the strait or else face massive destruction. But it seems complicated now, particularly if we don't find this second pilot and rescue him.
Yeah, and if I'm the Iranian terrorist regime, I'm reading the news and I'm seeing President Trump on Good Friday was in the Oval Office, his national security team there. And I don't like my odds. That's a president hard at work, the commander in chief. He knows what he's doing when he sets deadlines. Remember, he's a businessman and he means them. And he sent out a pretty stark warning to Iran this week. He said, I've bombed the biggest bridge in Iran. There was video of it that was put out. And you better come to the table or there will be consequences. So I wouldn't like my odds if I was on the other side of that negotiating.
But how does the fact that we have a missing airman change that calculation? I mean, you could say we're going to bomb you in 2 days when you've met the deadline, but we may have a guy on the field.
Yeah, and President Trump is always going to prioritize saving that life. We heard the idea of pausing strikes temporarily, and President Trump, that will add into the calculus. So I have no doubt that that is part of the moving pieces here. And just to acknowledge that pilot, like we are thinking of him, we are praying for him. And, you know, when we say they're casualties of war, it's often lumped together. But there are 13 that we have lost. They have names, they have families. Alex Kleiner, 2 7-month-old twins he left behind, a toddler. I was just reading about Nicole Amer, a mother who had 2 children. She was in Kuwait. They thought she was safe. This is the cost of war. These Americans, they're just great Americans. They are the very best Americans, following the footsteps of Jesus Christ and the sacrifices that they make overseas. So we think about that pilot, we pray for his recovery.
Let me add to what Rachel was just telling you about, and that's this idea that it could complicate negotiations. Let me share what the president said. He said, listen, it's not going to change how we do things. He expressed frustration about some of the coverage, what is plainly an intense and sensitive rescue operation. Asked if today's events will affect any negotiations with Iran. The president said, it would not, no, not at all. No, it's war. We are in war. And yet, one would imagine that they better be careful on their side of this thing because let's face it, Kaylee, if they capture this person and they parade this person, I would not want to be in the regime.
No, I wouldn't want to be either. And I think when we view President Trump's statements, having worked for him, having seen how he operates, he is always communicating to someone.
Wait a minute. If they capture the service member alive, Trump's options are diminished. It's going to only strengthen the Iranians, not weaken the Iranian position. Trump knows that. And this bullshit wouldn't have happened if he actually hit them with the 48-hour deadline. No, he extended it because he wanted to play big guy. See, this is the problem with Trump. He thinks that the Iranian war is like building a building in Manhattan. It's all about making a deal. Make a deal. I'm so fucking sick of him saying deal. Get the fucking job done, dipshit.
And sometimes that's the American people. That is, of course, his priority. But other times it is a communication to the enemy. And so when we view his communications, people were saying, oh, he's going to come out and announce a ground operation when he did that primetime, address. I said, there's no chance he would ever do that. He's not going to broadcast his strategy. And when he says, no, this won't change our operation, he's not going to say to Iran, yes, this is changing things, we're backing down. He's doing the internal calculus behind the scenes, and what he broadcasts is a specific message for a specific person.
One of the things that we've noticed about President Trump, or one of the things we've noticed about his economy, he brought back in 2016, we had a terrible economy coming out of Barack Obama, and he gave us the most amazing economy in all of our lifetimes. 50-year high in everything. Every class of people were up. Home ownership was up. Everything was booming. Then COVID happened, and then
the bottom line is this: in Trump 2.0, he's caused havoc with the tariffs, and there's still more instability economically because what is the tariff policy now because of what SCOTUS ruled? What's going on with the war in Iran? Doesn't look like he's winning right now. All right. The Strait is opening up, but it's only for a select few. And it seems like even Iran is collecting more money now because of the $2 million toll. Now, it could be an orchestrated effort, so America has a better position downstream with this, especially with selling energy. That could be, and in the long run, it'll be better for the United States. But I don't think that Trump is thinking in those terms. Trump is the benefit for the United States when we lose, if we lose in Iran, all right, is an emergent property because of the endowment of the energy that we have and our ability to export, especially LNG, to Asia. That's an emergent property. I don't think it's planned by Trump. So what pisses me off about Trump is, and Pete Hegseth, and I'm for Trump to be successful, and I'm for Pete Hegseth to be successful, but the problem is that they're rough stones. There's a lack of polish. There's a lack of, they're a little crass, all right? And Trump needs to stop viewing running his fucking administration like it's some sort of construction project. I want him to become more presidential, all right? He's going to lose the midterms. That means the Democratic Party is going to stall all of his efforts. So now he's lost 720 days of his administration because of stupidity.
We had Joe Biden. President Trump, again, against a lot of people saying it wasn't going to work, introduced tariffs. He's brought back a lot of manufacturing. He improved the gas and oil situation. And we saw gas prices lower. We saw jobs come up. And I think when we've been talking about all morning, we were on the verge in April, if not for the war, to see an absolute boom in this economy. Now, of course, tempered a little bit because of the war, but not as much as people thought. And we're seeing that in some of the numbers this week, that it's not the boom we thought, but it's also not the bust you would expect from a war that involves so much oil. Here is something here from Gallup poll. They asked Americans if they're worried about key issues. They said the economy worry is down by 9 points. Crime and violence worries have dropped by 8 points. Illegal immigration, no surprise. He's closed the borders. He solved that problem. It's off the table, down by 6 points. What do you make of the economy, the sentiment in of America during this war, but also coming into the midterms, not too far away?
Yeah, there was a fantastic jobs report. I took great joy in watching CNN last night. Have to admit that the jobs report exceeded expectations. The gas prices, are they high? Yes, they are. Are they Biden high? $5 per gallon?
No.
And what did we get from $5 a gallon gas prices under Biden? Absolutely nothing. What might we get from this temporary blip? We might get a non-nuclear Iran, the biggest threat on the globe, really eradicated, and the gas prices, by the way, coming down. We could be in a very different position 2 months from now. I agree with the president. He can change that. But I think that poll is interesting that you guys pull up from Gallup. I think there's a sense of you have a president who's constantly doing things. If you think back to midweek, what did he do all in one day? He addressed the nation on Iran. You saw Artemis 2 take off, a historic moment for America. And by the way, he did the job of Congress in making sure that DHS got funded.
That's right.
Something he should not have had to do, but he did it himself single-handedly by making sure those civilian employees that you and I talked about this week got paid. I think there's a sense he's doing things. Not to put too rosy of a picture on it, though, midterms will be hard for Republicans. Just it's historically difficult to win when you're in power. But I would like my odds more with this president than prior presidents.
Well, I mean, you know, let's not forget.
Then a little voter security will go a long way.
True.
Just saying. You talk about President Trump, you said, remember the previous president would call lids at 9 in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
It means the president's not going to do anything the rest of the day, and it's not even noon. I thought it was interesting. James Freeman, columnist in the Wall Street Journal, talked about kind of maybe what you're talking about, saying, is there something about a Trump White House that makes us exhale? Inside, he says, Mr. Trump's adversaries in politics and the press have spent a decade making the case that he is a uniquely dangerous threat to the country, yet the Gallup data that we just showed suggests that Americans view his time in office as a time when threats recede.
Al-Baghdadi, gone on his watch. Soleimani, gone on his watch. Two dictators toppled on his watch. Look, domestically, the southern border, we don't even think about it. It barely rates as an important issue anymore because he's stopped that threat. And crime in our cities he's taken on.
I'm for Trump. But the problem is, take a look at what is happening with Trump 2.0. Instability with tariffs. Instability with actually manufacturing coming back to the United States. There's not a lot of strong data proving that there's a lot of manufacture coming back. The East Wing, demolished supposedly for a new ballroom that doesn't seem like it's going to get built because it needs congressional approval. So he's leaving a scar on the landscape adjacent to the White House. And what's going on with oil? We don't know. I trade oil all the time. And I'm telling you, it's really hard with risk management to be able to manage through this crisis. All right? Some people would say, just long it. You can't just long it because he can open up his mouth and the oil can drop $10. So you got to risk manage. So it's really hard to actually play this correctly. Now, if you want to take a lot of risks, yeah, then maybe. But if you're taking a lot of risks, you're going to lose a lot too. All right? So I'm seeing a lot of instability the last 2 months from Trump or 4 months from Trump. He needs to get his shit together because if this continues on to June, he's going to lose the House. He needs to get his shit together. No matter how much lipstick they put on the pig on Fox News, it's not going to solve the problem. He needs to win. Get it done. Stop being such a chicken shit.
I feel better with the president who has tangible action, certainly much better than the president who just said don't and called lids in the morning top 10 times. And you got the sense of a lethargic presidency. I'm foreseeing.
Let's forget what he's done in the Western Hemisphere. I mean, listen, I have a lot of questions about the war. And I think there's a lot of Americans that are worried. Let's not pretend and sugarcoat this like that we're somehow out of the woods or anything like that. We have a soldier on the ground. Things could escalate. We hope that he finds an off-ramp here soon and we can get back to normal.
Yeah.
But what he's done in the Western Hemisphere cannot be underestimated. That is the most important region for all of us. These are our neighbors. And he's single-handedly, one by one, rooting out communism, dictators,
and the threats of many of these regimes that they had embedded themselves, the Chinese, the Iranians, into Latin America. And so that cannot be underestimated. We talked earlier on the couch, Katie, one of the problems is you start solving some of these problems, the border, the Western Hemisphere, the Chinese in our backyard. It's like people stop talking about it, and now it could be also an election problem coming into the midterms because you solve some of those problems.
I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling.
All right, we're going to go to positive momentum behind jobs report that was announced. That was this is for U.S. March non-farm payrolls rise to 178,000 month over month. Estimate was 65,000. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. This will help to remodel your joints from a sports injury or from arthritis, just getting old. Guess what? Collagen can help you. It will help to use collagen type 2 to rebuild the cartilage. Also, it'll help to recruit glucosamine to build up that cartilage. It will also help to remodel the cushioning of the joint. A lot of people don't realize that you need your cartilage and then you need the cushioning. There's a fluid, synovial fluid, and there's actually a cushioning of the joint. So with that, you need ACAN and chondroitin to help with the cushioning of the joint. Collagen will help with that. And it will help to reduce inflammation and block some of the pain by blocking EP4. And it will block the enzymes that erode the joint by blocking MMP3 and MMP13. So this will help to remodel the joint. The moment you start having problems with your joints, either because of a sports injury or because of arthritis, it's important to start the repair as soon as possible. You can stack this with the collagen that I have, and you can also use this with the super strong relief to further relieve the pain that you may have as you're remodeling the joint. But the point here is to start right away, because the longer you wait and there's more inflammation, there's more erosion of the cartilage. And if you have complete cartilage erosion, you're going to need surgery. So it's important to start remodeling the joints right now if you have a problem. Please go to my store, get the collagen. This is a great product. Also, I have heirloom barley. This will help to detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals. It's dual purpose. By bringing down the inflammation, it's going to help your joint health. By bringing down inflammation, it helps with your cardiovascular health and your brain function. Detoxifying your body also helps with brain function and cardiovascular health, but also your immune system and your endocrine system. You will slow down the aging process by taking this. Now, if you stack this with Boomer Boost, it will be even more benefits. So please go to my store and get the heirloom barley or the gladiator barley. The gladiator barley has one other feature that the heirloom barley doesn't have, and that is it'll help you build muscle. So please go to my store, get the heirloom barley or the gladiator barley. Like I said, stack it. And when you stack these supplements, like I've been saying in this video, you will get max benefits and you're going to slow down the aging process even more. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. The protocol works. It's what I do every day. And guess what? I'm older than Alex Jones. It doesn't look like it. All right? Now, why is that? Maybe my supplements are better. Maybe the magic is in the stacking. Maybe you should take my advice. I'm not wrong.
Jobs number. How much momentum is in this economy?
Yeah, you mentioned the word momentum, and that was exactly when we were talking about today's number last night with the president. Momentum was really the key theme of the briefing that here the CEA chair and I discussed with the president. The fact is that there's so much momentum because of all the positive policies, the deregulation, the low tax rates, And then you're seeing all the positive stories about no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. I, by the way, was at a restaurant yesterday and I asked all the waiters how much money they made on the no tax on tips. And the range was from $3,000 to $10,000. And they were all so happy. So that's like a positive momentum creating thing that I think if you have your eye on the horizon, as America's corporations do, absolutely explains why job markets are booming. And so I think that if you keep your eye on the horizon, if you understand the long run growth, the golden age is coming because of our policies, then this jobs number makes complete sense. The final thing I want to say is I want to tip my cap to my former colleague in the Trump White House in the first term, Anna Wong, who's now the chief economist for you guys. You know, I always read everything she writes, but at the beginning of the week, she said almost exactly this is what's going to happen. And she was the only person in the universe that did it. I commend her because she's got a great model and she got the number almost exactly right. And finally, in her report, she said, if you really want to wonder about momentum, you can also look at the 3-month moving average because we had like that big blip down in the previous month. And she said with her really optimistic outlook, it was going to go up to 61,000 average per month. And it's actually closer to 68,000 now. And so it really is a very, very positive day.
68 on the money, the 3-month average. And I was looking for 150 headline today. We got 178. Bramo, do you think that Kevin might be popular in restaurants at the moment?
I think it very much so. I think that he's trying to exploit that, trying to get some free onion rings.
Kevin, no doubt we've got momentum and lots of reasons for it. We've got the tax refunds starting to come through. The Fed had cut rates at the back end of last year. Some of the biggest companies on the planet are spending a lot of money. Those capex intentions are huge for the year ahead. How insulated do you think the US economy is, given the shock in the Middle East and the reality that energy prices now are a lot higher than they were a few months ago?
Well, one thing is that the U.S. is really the engine that drives the global economy again. We kind of lost that status, I think, under the previous administration. And so I know that there are starting to be some supply disruptions in the East and so on, but the U.S. is standing ready to export more to these countries, more refined product, more crude. And also, we've taken a number of steps to minimize the disruptions here in the U.S., doing things like waiving the Jones Act so that we can get U.S. gas and finished product over to the West Coast. And so I think that in the end, the strength of the U.S. economy is going to be something that's kind of like a safety net for Asia as they're dealing with the fact that they have to import all their oil. And so shocks, they're more sensitive to shocks.
They're experiencing real shortages. We've seen fuel rationing in places like Indonesia. Certain governments introduce from your perspective, given the momentum we have, and given the higher prices in energy, just what is the prospect for broader price pressure picking up from here for the year ahead?
Well, what I would urge you guys to do, and you have the technical capability to do it, is something that I look at every day, is look at what the futures markets think. And also, if you look at the options markets, you can construct a sort of 95% confidence interval of what's possible with energy prices. And if you look at that, then it pretty much futures markets agree with President Trump that this is going to be a temporary disruption. And then the strength of the U.S. economy is going to basically be a bulwark for the global economy. And so I would suggest I keep a close eye on the futures markets. Forecasting these things is very difficult, but the futures markets have, basically prices going back towards normal over the summer, but there is a pretty wide 95% confidence interval.
There is a question, though, Kevin, how much you can really model out right now, given how quickly moving things are on the ground. And a lot of people who we speak to expect oil prices to remain higher for longer. We're looking right now at diesel prices at $5.53. We're looking at average gasoline prices at above $4. Can you still see 4% GDP growth this year if oil prices remain at these levels?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think, as you saw with today's jobs report, that we should expect that people are going to have to revise their annual forecasts very much. And I think that the main reason for the U.S. and the main reason is that we're a much different economy than we were in the 1970s when we were so energy dependent. I do think that there, will be some negative repercussions that'll be very short-lived in the Asian economies, and we expect that disruption to be over really, really soon. It's something the president has emphasized over and over, and emphasized again with me last night.
How much are you modeling, though, what happens if this goes on through June, through July, through August? I mean, how much do you have contingency plans for what type of levers you could pull to help support an economy that has enough momentum in it heading into this at a time when people already are cutting back around the margins. You can see this in certain discretionary spending types of surveys that are coming out in real time.
Our job.
I started a business to give old folks a new life, and Chase has supported me from the beginning.
Ever since my dermatologist recommended use of Brighteon Channel, I'm kind of obsessed with the results. I just keep getting better.
Our job is to prepare for every scenario, but to be realistic about what we expect. And what we expect with a high confidence is that what you're seeing in today's jobs market will continue, and that this situation in the Middle East will be over very shortly, as the president has said over and over. And then people can put their eyes back on the horizon and see that we're creating a golden age. But of course, we're very careful to think about what could be disrupted and what we could do to do something about it. And as an example, we found that some Asian economies were holding back jet fuel shipments to some of our airports on the West Coast. And so we waived the Jones Act to make sure that we could get some Gulf oil to the West Coast so that their airports could continue to run. There are little things like that all around the world that happen every day, and we've got people who are watching every single one of them to minimize the disruption.
How much are you pushing, Kevin, also to remove certain taxes on gasoline, on diesel, in order to also make it more affordable in the near future?
Well, I think that right now the focus is on finishing the job, and our strong belief is that if we do that, then we're going to get things back to normal very, very quickly. And don't forget, we're talking about the costs of what we're doing. The benefit is that we're hopefully ending the time when this really murderous country can cause turmoil throughout the Middle East. And if you think about that, then I'm sure that some of your Wall Street friends could give you some guesstimates today, but what's the higher risk premium that's capitalizing the markets all around the world because of Iranian terrorism? How much more investment would there be in the Middle East if people aren't worried that the Iranians are going to be throwing rockets at them all the time? These are all long-run big positive effects, and if this ends shortly, then I think that you're going to see a recovery, even in the places that are currently most heavily burdened by this, because they're the ones who have been really suffering so much under the oppression of this country.
Kevin, can we finish on the war? And I don't expect you to talk about strategy and timelines. We've talked about that before. You wouldn't want to compromise the safety of our troops in the region at the moment. I'd like to finish on objectives and reopening the Strait of Hormuz, because some of the communication through the week has been slightly contradictory in the minds of some. That on the one hand, the president has said, open up the strait or else. And other days, the president has said, it's up to other people to open up the strait because they're more dependent on it. Where are we on that front at the moment? Is it the objective of the administration to reopen the Strait of Hormuz?
I'm going to continue to let the president speak on that matter. I think that we are moving full speed ahead with our plans, and we believe that as we do that, things will return back to normal relatively quickly. But as far as talking about short-term policy, I'll let the president speak for himself.
Tired of boring news? Here's Jen Spark.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. You can get it in extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, or MCT coconut oil. Now, C60 needs to be suspended in an oil for proper absorption. Some people take C60 powders, they don't work, all right? You want liquid, all right, to be able to do the absorption properly. Now, take a teaspoon a day, every day, preferably on an empty stomach in the morning for best absorption. Well, what C60 will do is to soak up free radicals. It's 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. One molecule of C60 compared to one molecule of vitamin C is 1,000 times stronger. So, with that, soak up the free radicals, you'll boost up the health of your mitochondria, and you'll have more ATP. You'll have more energy. So your cells and your tissues will perform better. It'll also reduce stress in the cell and the tissues and bring down inflammation. And by doing that, your organ systems will perform better, like your immune system and your endocrine system. your glands, your thyroid, even your cardiovascular health will improve. Why? Because by soaking up free radicals at the vascular level, you're reducing the concentration of oxidized LDL. Therefore, you're reducing plaque formation. And at the brain level, you're helping the health of your neurons. So you're going to build over time positive neuroplasticity so you have better memory and better cognition. Also, C60 improves the health of your basal layer for your skin, so you will look younger. So it's really important to take C60 every day, teaspoon a day. It's very powerful. I've been doing this since 2016, so over 10 years. 10 years I've been doing this. All right. Now you stack it. This is where the magic is. You stack it with this protocol that I'm going to mention. You want to take the probiotics from my store, either the powder or the veggie cap version, the multivitamin, which is easy to digest. You take the C60, you take the Max 30 Fiber Cleanse, the turmeric, the ashwagandha lignans, and the Boomer Boost. You stack that together, and it's a very powerful way to slow down the aging process. And it's going to focus on and target all these different organ systems. Add in a holistic approach, proper diet and exercise, proper sleep, learn new things, mindfulness or spirituality, drinking filtered water, stay away from processed foods, and reduce your sugar intake. When you do all that, you're going to radically slow down the aging process, and you're going to build up a musculature. You'll have better posture. And even these little things like better posture will improve your lymphatic flow, improve your venous return flow. So it's going to help with your cardiovascular health. Good posture helps with cardiovascular health. A lot of people, it's like, huh? I don't understand that. If you're hunched over all the time, do you really think you have good venous flow? And if you're hunched over all the time, you're probably not moving around that much. But if you have more musculature and better posture, you're moving around more. And building back muscles are super important to slow down the aging process. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the C60. Take it every day. You're going to feel the effects of this within 2 months. You'll have more energy. Your immune system, your endocrine system will be better. And not only that, you take this for 1 year, and you do that before and after. You take a look at before you start taking C60 and then after, you will look younger. Especially if you add it to this protocol. So please go to my store, get the C60, take my advice, and stack. That's the end of my broadcast. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Thank you for listening. I'll do another show tomorrow, but the Iranian conflict is going to continue. It's not going to ramp down anytime soon, and it's going to affect energy prices. And we'll go into details on how to navigate that. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.